So the screen behind me will basically stay green, so I'm not going to have any PowerPoints on here. What I'm basically putting on is basically where Keith had his last projects, residential projects, high-end residential projects, and people that live in these places and buy these places. So we had a lot of hard work from all those people in the ASTM writing the 1036, 1048, and they're great tools. They're great tools for everybody who trades glass in a completely unemotional way and fashion. Nobody looks. If Keith goes to a factory, he knows, stand back 3 meters and look at the glass. I go, stand back 3 meters and look at the glass. So what does that do? It basically sets off a whole chain of bad events. Because what we do is then developers build these buildings, sell them for enormous sums of money, tens of millions of dollars, US or anyway, and floor-to-ceiling glazing is a must-have these days. Huge pieces of glass are a must-have these days in this type of residential conditions. And in comes the lawyer or the medical doctor with a lot of money, but no understanding of what we are doing in our construction industry, no understanding of tolerances or anything else. What he's used to is buying his new Mercedes-Benz and getting in there, and it's all scratch-free and it's all perfect and it smells like new, and construction never does that. So this is where the trouble starts. So going back to 1063, basically what we have is we have a glass that we all know has imperfections. But the owner of this building, or the owner of the flat, actually doesn't accept any imperfections. He wants it perfect. But what does perfect mean is to be debated, but let's not do that here. Right now, I'm just basically saying, what can we do? Basically going away from where we are right now. The system is somehow breaking, and I do think it is breaking at a point that, at a time now, because previously, very few high-end residential towers were being built. Everybody built his own house and he was happy with what he was getting, but these days it's more high-end residential towers. They are being built by a commercial developer. Commercial developer sells the individual flats and people then purchase a product, and they have no emotional attachment in the process of getting towards that point. The issue we have as facade professionals is that the glass industry apparently has not been getting towards it and has not made any efforts up to now that I can see to rectify this situation and to help out on making this one a true reality for those owners at a certain level of expectation to complete these projects and be happy with them. Basically, the entire glass industry is based on square meters. How can I produce square meters the fastest way out of a float tank? How can I process it the fastest way through tempering, coating, lamination, and building it into IGUs in order to maximize the profit on the glass plant? But the whole process is driven in a way, at least that is what I have been seeing over the last 15 years, is driven by a way of thinking that is similar to a steel plant. You can roll steel plant You can basically run it and it works, but in the end, 99% of steel would never be seen again, but glass is. People are basically standing there. They're standing there like this and look through this stuff, and their guests do the same thing, and it is basically a very bad way of selling a product. So now, basically, why I'm here is basically trying to ask the glass industry, are you interested in anything? Are you interested to basically start a discussion about basically two possible changes which somehow will come? The one is voluntary, and it is basically a little niche market that is going to create itself inside of the industry. The other one would be a code change, a change in standards. Let me spell this out in a little bit more detail. The change one, which is what I would like to be, is that certain manufacturers within the glass industry try to grab an opportunity and move on with it. Is this a mass market? No, for sure not. For sure not. It's not a mass market. But we need these specialists. That's my view. We need them in the same way as we need people who are specialized in curved glass, long span structure of glass. There are people who basically have moved outside of the standard of the industry. They have built ovens which nobody else has. See the competition between North Glass and SEDAC in order to make 20-meter glass, 17.5-meter glass, and whatever. And subsequently, this type of glass is no longer purchased as a commodity. It is purchased as a very specific item that the client is prepared to pay for. And he is paying for it. Apple stores are not coming for free. The change two is the one where I'm saying I don't want that, because that would basically drive a whole industry through the wall, because I don't want that to happen, because it basically what that will be is everybody is putting more stringent conditions on the glass industry. So glass which doesn't need to be perfect will have to be perfect. Why? All it does, it's driving cost unnecessarily. So what I'm advocating is who in the industry is interested to pick up this role of the perfect glass manufacturer. But this probably has to be a chain of events. It has to go from float to construction site. We have to have everybody under one roof. We have to be the float tank, the coating people, logistics, how it comes to site, how it's being assembled, how it is being transported back to site, how it is being installed, how the main contractor is going to look after this one, plus a lot more of items which we have, like protection. How to protect it, how to protect the glass on each step. Up to now, I have never seen that glass after floating was being protected. It doesn't happen. Nobody in the glass industry does it, but maybe for certain applications, we may have to do that. So it basically is how we can change our way of doing into something that we can really produce an end product that the people are willing to pay tens of millions of US dollars for in order to own it. What it does, it will basically lead to people having to invest, having to purchase equipment which may not be the most efficient one, which may not be the most cheap to run. Like tempering furnaces may not be the roller-based type, it may be the air cushion type. It will work. It may work. And I'm just confident that we can build this chain. I'm just needing that we have a discussion and that we start with a couple of people who are basically willing to pick this up, because I think the market is there. And that, to me, is the potential. 10 years ago, if anybody in this room would have asked, can we have 20 meter by 3.6 meter big glass, he would have been laughed out of this room. Wouldn't be there. It was not on the radar of anybody. But it was found that somehow there is a commercial case to do it, so people put it into operation. What I'm basically saying is, I can't do it, but I'm just advocating, can we as a whole industry do something that will improve the end product to a point that people are really willing to invest in the final product, which is the flat, but on the why, basically, that we have people to invest in the factories that need to be there. Thanks. Unfortunately, not that many glass people here today.
Thanks, Andreas. Any questions for Andreas?
So thank you, Andreas.
Thanks a lot.
One of the things here that you talk about is in instilling a change, and well, voluntary and then through code, and just wanted to kind of get some of your comments and thoughts on a process through standards development and code changes. How do you see that, and especially coming from your part of the world compared to what you see from others?
Now, I want to really avoid changing code, because I think that cold is like cold water. Basically, you pour it over somebody, and in this case, it's not going to basically change. I want to just have 1 or 2% of the whole glass industry to change. So I don't need the 98%. The other 98%, leave them what they do. They do it well, and they are perfect at doing that. But I want to find a way to get this 2% of perfect glass to be manufactured and installed. And for that reason, I don't think we need a code change. I think we just need a mindset. We need a mindset that glass is not a square meter commodity. We need a mindset that it's not the fastest way I can produce that stuff. It's the mindset that we have to look after it. Maybe it needs that after each step of production, there is a person. Yes, there is cost in that person, but it's in the end product. It's in the end product price in the end. That's the way I think about it right now. The last thing I really want to do is cheap residential projects. Okay, fine. They are what they are. They have to have a cost-conscious way of doing it. So I don't want to take that away. But there is another end of projects which I really look after, and that is the part where I really am concerned that I'm not getting what I need. Yeah.
Thanks for your talk, Andreas. As you know, one of my hats is representing an Asian manufacturer, which is a primary producer through processor. And a lot of what you've mentioned sort of springs to me regarding perfect glass and standards. And of course, we have standards, and we do a lot of importing into Australia. And while we meet Australian standards, I think maybe what you're referring to is more of a quality mark that we don't have. And maybe like I guess generally speaking, we see the standards as a minimum quality
Correct.
accessible, passable standard. So I think what you're talking about is having perhaps like a certification type thing to say this is an A+ quality, this is a B, whatever.
Something like, you see, you have the minimum standard, as you mentioned it perfectly correct, where it says out of 3 meter there is a scratch and there's another scratch, and they can be so far apart and so far apart. But Mr. Rich wants to walk to his window and look at it from 20 centimeter away and see no scratch.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is possible. And when we're working with contractors, they have a certain level of quality expectations, which is, if it's not formalized, it's an ad hoc standard, and it's typically project by project or case by case or organization by organization.
Yes.
But that can absolutely be achieved. I think what you're suggesting would require a lot of operational management within groups to ensure these things. But
It requires that people want to produce it. It's not impossible. It is the one that they are willing to support themselves in order to produce it.
Are you finding the most objectionable user flaw would just be scratch glass?
Any sort of scratch, bubbles, indentations, marks that have been there from the during the floating is basically where we are. I don't know if you're leading towards roller waves or edge dip or something like that. That quite often I think that is a lesser, that's more an architectural concern. It is probably lesser of an end user concern. That's the way I've seen it. The end user is basically looking at the scratch bubbles and so on.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking the scratches are maybe a result of fabrication, transportation, installation, contractors working on or around the glass. Is it easier just to come back and plan on polishing the glass in that case after?
Tried that one as well. Polishing obviously is a very inaccurate science. It's a guy with a machine, and if he's leaning in a bit more today, then he's putting indentations into the glass. So that what we found is that the optical quality of the glass in the end is worse, but the scratches are gone.
Right. Yeah, it depends on the depth, I suppose.
Yeah,
you know.
right. Okay.
Thanks, Andreas. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hi there. Did you like what you just saw? If you did, why don't you like the video, drop us a comment below, and share the video as well, since GPD is all about sharing. And to receive more videos in future, subscribe to this channel and don't forget to click the bell icon. Ciao!